to another fantastic episode of the CSC, or the Cromwell Sports Chronicles. My name's Lane Cromwell, and I am privileged to be your host. I appreciate you clicking or tuning in so you can hear more authentic stories about people's lives and how sports is. We all love sports, and that's just how it is. I will say this: I'm really excited for today's guest. He is a legend, and he might try to contradict me on that, but trust me, he is a living legend, and he's tonight. Our guest is going to take Cromwell Sports Chronicles to the next level. So let me introduce my guest, living legend, Dave Riddle. Dave, thanks for being on the show. How you doing?
You know, I'm doing awesome. I've been listening to the show, and I practically begged you, I guess, subliminally, so I could be a guest on the show. So I just feel honored to be here today.
Well, thank you, man. Tell you what, I should say Dave and I have a little bit of a background. We used to be roommates in the sweet city of Yazoo City, Mississippi. We were down there doing church-related items, and just a good experience. But today we're not talking anything religious. I guess maybe a different kind of religion, a sports religion. So, Dave, when I first met him, one of the things that really stood out to me is how he could beat the living tar out of people via wrestling. It was a great experience and a great introduction. So, as I do with most of my guests, Dave, tell us just a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up? What were some of your first experiences with wrestling, or any influences that you'd like to share with us?
So I grew up in Cedar City, Utah, and I started wrestling around age 5. I think that was when I got loaded up with it. My parents signed me up for all kinds of sports. We did baseball, swimming, football, I think even track, soccer. I think even one year we tried gymnastics. I never could pull off the splits, but we were always quite busy with sports. But wrestling was always kind of a standout for me. And I think for me, just getting into it, I remember in the second grade, I think that's when I really kind of said, Dave, you're a wrestler. I'd gotten into an after school fight, and as kids do, and I can't remember what it was over, and it was some kid started fighting with me, and he knew karate, and he kicked at me with this kick, and I thought, well, I'm a wrestler. Why would you give a leg to a wrestler? And I took him down to the ground and held him down, and told him it was over, and we won. So after that, I loved wrestling.
Oh, folks, I'm telling you, if that's the starting story, this is only going to go up from here. So, did you have like any older brothers, or did your dad were you kind of the trendsetter when it came to your family as far as wrestling?
So I grew up with 4 brothers. I have an older brother and then 2 younger brothers. So, yeah, I think I don't know if we all started about the same. If my older brother and I started about the same time, or if we probably started about the same time. But yeah, it was just kind of my dad. He wrestled in high school, but he claims that he only won one match. So it wasn't. I don't know if he never really pressured us or anything. It was just always kind of fun to watch us wrestle. So,
That's one unique thing that Dave and I have in common, is we have all brothers. And this, maybe I'm just going out on a limb here, and it's okay if you don't know this, but my guess is maybe your mom said, instead of wrestling here in the house, let's get them out in an organized fashion away from the house so they're not destroying things. What do you think about that theory?
that's a pretty good theory, but I think it backfired, because I think all the aggression, and
No.
I mean it just got channeled. I mean it was just one of those things that I think it just made us a little bit better when we did that at home. So I mean, even I think even in college, I remember breaking furniture with brothers. So it's just kind of one of those deals. I don't know if it backfired or not, but that could have fallen into it too.
Well, I've asked a lot of my guests this, and I guess I just like the question. Maybe it's not a good question, but you actually said second grade is kind of when you got pulled into it. Was there a moment where you kind of said, hey, maybe not only is this for me, but I feel like I'm pretty dang good at it? Was there ever a moment like that where you said, I think I'm pretty good at wrestling?
I don't think I ever. I mean, I knew, as a kid growing up, you'd have years that you were good and some years that you struggled. It's kind of one of those deals. You really kind of have to learn how to lose. At least it was for me. You have to learn how to lose, and where it's on a weight process. If you're a little heavier kid, you might be wrestling kids that are 3 or 4 years older than you. And I was kind of a slow maturing kind of a kid, and it's tough, if you're a sixth grade kid wrestling an eighth grade kid that's hit puberty. And so, yeah, there were times you really got the tar beat out of you. And I knew, because I'd done it for so long that wrestling against the average person, I could do well against them. But I don't think I ever really thought I was good or knew I was good, probably until my senior year. Maybe towards the end of my junior year, I really started to click good. But I'll bet not until my senior year did I really feel like, man, you're not too bad right now.
Huh. That's great. I remember probably, and again, this goes to one of my lifetime theories, Dave, is that the brain is not totally developed until 25, and that was perfectly shown when I was in wrestling. I remember I needed to lose weight on our way to a match. I put a garbage bag, and again, for young listeners who are looking to wrestle, don't do as I do as I say. Don't do this. This is stupid. But I got in a garbage can, laid down on the bus floor, sat next to the heater, and tried to sweat out weight so when we got to the match, I could do that. I think you have some kind of weight loss story experience that maybe you'd share.
Oh my goodness, I've got a few, but I'm sure my wife will not appreciate me sharing this one. But I've got to. I don't know how I don't share this. So
You have to.
So yeah, there were plenty of times that I did dumb things to lose weight. I think all wrestlers do. And again, I wouldn't encourage that. I don't think until high school anybody should ever cut weight. But even in high school, you should be careful. But so my senior year in high school, I made a switch. I was wrestling at 152, and I decided to drop down to 145. And it took a little bit of time to kind of get to where I could really hold that weight. And so kind of in that, I'd made that switch to 145, and I was struggling making weight. And it was right before Christmas, and it was the last duel we had before Christmas break, and it was against Pineview down in St. George. And I had a kid in my weight, and it was important to get some wins against people there in our region just for seeding at state. And I had a kid that was my weight, and he was a really tough kid. I'd wrestled him before, and I'd beat him. But I, it's one of those matches that is never really. I don't think you ever have a free run on any match. But that day before the match, I kind of got lazy and decided that I wasn't gonna run like I normally did to lose the weight. And I thought, I'm gonna try ex-lax. And so I went to Walmart, and I'd never purchased ex-lax before, right?
No.
And so I walked through the aisles of Walmart, and I find ex-lax, and I haven't had candy for 3 months, right? Well, ex-lax comes in a chocolate bar.
Chocolate. Oh, no, that's even worse.
I found an ex-lax chocolate bar, and I thought, how did I not discover this amazing weight loss tool 5 years ago, right? So I purchased the ex-lax happily. Um, I I went back to school. I opened it up. I remember my first class was this mechanic shop down by the college, and I opened it up and broke off a piece. They had a little read the instructions, said just take one piece, whatever. So I took a piece of it and ate it, and it was delicious. I mean, I thought this is fantastic. I was sold. And keep in mind, the night before that, I had already started dehydrating, and so I guess I don't think X-Lax works when you're dehydrated. Um, anyway, so I took the X-Lax a couple hours later. I thought I didn't realize sometimes it takes overnight too. But anyway, so a couple hours into it, I thought, oh, maybe I need more. So I took another piece of X-Lax, and it wasn't working. As the day got right before we got on the bus to go down to St. George for this match, I took another piece, and I thought, well, that's a ripoff. And
You're three
anyway, we went
pieces in
down
by
to.
now. Is that what I'm
I'm
hearing?
3 pieces into the bar.
You're 3 pieces
I'm,
in.
I'm three. I'm 3 pieces. I'm 3 pieces into the party right now, right? so, so we go down there and get off the bus. Go. I'm thinking that's a ripoff, man. I just wasted $3 or whatever it was. I weigh in. I don't make weight, so I hurry and throw some sweats on, and some plastics on, and go and run around the gym for about an hour and made weight. And so I made weight, and we had about an hour before the matches. And so, of course, after you make weight, you start hydrating and eating a little bit, So I drank a big thing of Gatorade, and I felt great. I thought, well, at X-Lax, I'm never going to do that dumb thing again, right? And so we work our way through the matches, and it's my turn to come up for this match. And our school it was a big enough duel that our school had actually sent a student bus down to watch this. It's right before my last match before Christmas, for my break, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to beat this kid in front of the whole school. Everybody's watching. They're going to be able to see how tough I am. And I run out to the center of the ring. I look at the kid, and I think I'm going to eat you for lunch. And I shake his hand, and just as we shook hands before the ref blew the whistle,
No.
I felt that gurgle in my stomach, the gurgle of death.
No.
I'm telling you, I've never had a more horrified feeling in my life than this time, right? And
everybody knows the gurgle. Everybody knows the gurgle too.
You know the gurgle of death, right? Well, there's that sound. I imagine it resonated through the stands. It was something that I still remember. That it was a horrible day, Lane. Horrible day. So we shake hands, and my stance went from I had a pretty low stance to almost standing straight up as I'm in what I like to call the clench stance. I'm trying. The ref blows the whistle, and I'm thinking I'm going to ruin my entire life over this stupid match, but I can't lose the match. And of course, immediately the kid takes me down, and I'm a pull. I am not moving because I don't want to die, and I don't know, I don't know if it really worked. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you just start making deals with the big man upstairs, right? But I started making some serious deals. I mean, that was
That's a full-on conversation, man. That's a full-on conversation on the mat.
Oh, you don't even know what I promised. I mean, it was, and I sold my soul back the best way I possibly could. And the funny thing is I got an escape. I stood up. I sunk this perfect head throw, or some people call it a head and arm, and just threw him straight to his back, sunk it tight, and pinned the kid. And I don't even know if I waited for my hand to be raised. And I ran off the mat, and I survived the night and won my match. And I made all kinds of deals that day. And anyway, so I would suggest to the kids to ever try that thing. That's a really dumb way to lose weight. But after that, I usually woke up before school in the mornings and ran for about an hour. I'd usually like to go run in the mornings and just really try to push it extra. So after that, I never really had problems making weight.
Is it safe to say everything came out okay?
It is safe. It is safe to say that everything came out okay.
Okay.
My dignity was intact. I, you know, it was one of those things that's still kind of hard to talk about, but I've come to terms with it.
Wow.
And sometimes we make mistakes and we learn from it. But that's kind of what wrestling is you learn from your mistakes.
Wow. Well, that's interesting because mistakes. You know, anytime I think and I used to wrestle too. You know, you can analyze wins. You don't seem to analyze as much. Losses sometimes you seem to overanalyze. But I think you wanted to possibly share a story about state championship match. Would you feel comfortable sharing
Ooh.
that?
That's a tough thing to talk about. My wife,
Uh,
when we bring it up, my wife's like, "Oh, here we go," because it's. Have you ever had just a regret that just? Have you ever had a regret that just eats at you every single day of your life? Not so bad now, but I mean, at least for
uh,
20 years.
I think
This is
every
one. So
person anybody that's ever done sports is going to start feeling maybe some pain right now that they can relate to. So I appreciate you sharing, but hit us with, yeah, I think we've all had something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So for me, this was my senior year. Again, I was doing really well. Went through one region. Ended up wrestling the kid in the region finals, the kid from the ex-lax incident, and he had really gotten tougher, but I ended up pinning him in the third round, and it ended up seeding me at the state championships. I walked into the state championships and looked there, and that number one spot was me, ranked number one going into state. My record was the best in my weight. We looked through there, and then down second ranked at the bottom was a kid named Matt McNaughton from Wasatch High School. And anyway,
All
the
right.
tournament went on. I actually had a bye my first match. That's kind of the beauty of if you can go to the state championships at number one, is you'll get a bye going into it, and that kind of gives you a little break going in. So anyway, I went through and wrestled my matches uh, going into it. I think the first match. I think my first match in, I wrestled. I can't remember who it was, but I actually about got disqualified. I'd thrown kind of a nasty move on a kid that was potentially dangerous and lost a point for it. And I knew it kind of hurt the kid during the middle of the match, but I was a pretty aggressive wrestler at the time. I mean, I was, and that helped a lot. I actually I blew my thumbs out about mid-season and started taping my thumbs. And I noticed though, if I put a wrinkle in that tape on my thumbs, I noticed when I cross-faced guys, it would cut, and I was dirty. I know. Sorry, I shouldn't. Don't do that, kids. But I tape around the thumbs and the wrists, and I put wrinkles across where I'd run a cross-face, and it really would work you over and cut the skin, and I really worked those cross-faces hard. But anyway, I was pretty aggressive wrestler. Maybe I don't know, I'm going to call that dirty, but I think it's a mental game, and if you're sometimes you got to do what you need to do to be on top of the game. But there was this kid. I'd hurt the kid about mid match through a potentially dangerous move. It wasn't. It was partially. I think I partially did it on purpose, partially not. But anyway, I think it broke a couple of his ribs, and anyway, he
Oh,
still toughed it out, and I didn't get disqualified. But I worked those ribs the rest of the match and ended up pinning him in the third round. And anyway, I wrestled up through the semifinals, and I made it to the finals. And for me, that was always kind of my biggest goal in life, was to make it to the state championship finals. And I thought, I'm here. And I remember we lined up all the wrestlers, the big opening ceremonies, and in fact, I looked across. I was at 145. The kid next to me was the 140 pounder, who was in my weight at 145, and I'd actually won by technical fall, or by so many points that that they just stopped the match. And he was actually the guy wrestling. He took state at 140 that year. And then the weight down from him was a kid. You maybe heard of Kel Sanderson, who's considered arguably the greatest Division One collegiate
really?
wrestler of all time. He's the only person that's
Wow.
ever gone Division One undefeated through
Right.
Division One college ever. He was on a Wheaties box. Uh, he
Yeah.
now is the head coach for Penn State. And I think
Right.
maybe 10 out of the 12 years, they've won the national championships with him coach. I mean, amazing guy, right?
Right.
It was awesome to see this kid here. I think he ducked the kid that I had tech followed. So he was 2 years younger than me too, though. So it was, but it was awesome. I looked around and see all these guys, and I made it. And I thought, man, you're there. I said, you could. And I thought to myself, you don't even have to win, and you got your respect, you still did really awesome. And I think that was one of the biggest regrets I ever that being passive. I sit and as I've looked back on it, I just think that being passive is really something, and not really having that in my head to win at the beginning of the match. And I was just kind of in do-de-do land, do-do-do down, Anyway, the match, we start the match, and I'm wrestling this kid from Wasatch, and I'm enjoying, I'm having a good time, but I'm not there to win. And this kid takes me down, and we wrestle, and I get an escape, and he takes me down again, and he starts winning me. And the first round, and he shouldn't have been. And it was just something that I was like, well, still doing awesome. And about mid match, uh, after the second, so the second round, after the second round, I had gotten a bloody nose, and my coach was putting a plug in my nose, and he goes, and I don't know if he said, so you gonna wrestle now, or what are you doing? And it struck me. I thought, all this work, and you're just gonna sit and do nothing. And I went back out that third round, and I thought, that's not going to happen. And so I turned it up hard, and I could turn it. The third round was always I always did well in the third round and overtime because I put in the extra time. I always ran in the mornings, was in great shape. And that third round, I chose down. I did a short sit, hooked this kid's head, and threw him into this absolutely perfect basket cradle. And it was tight, and I could see his shoulders were flat. And anyway, I think I've got the video of it. Something that I just still wait to share with my kids. But anyway, you can see you can almost get a 7 count on this kid's shoulders on the mat at the pin. And there were 2 refs, and I still remember hearing the one ref that was a secondary ref saying, "Hey,
Really?
that's a fall," and nothing. Anyway, the third round time ran out. I didn't get the pin, and I look up at the scoreboard, and the points my near fall points starts chalking up, and I just barely missed the win by a point, maybe 2 points. I can't remember what the score was, but it was there, and I remember just being devastated, thinking, "Holy crap, what did you?" And so, yeah, it was just a huge letdown. And I thought, and at first, I think I always I think for years I just blamed the ref, and I thought, oh, that sucker, I'd kill him if I saw him. Because later I'd found out that I think the ref was the kid's freestyle coach, but it was, I blamed that, but as I look back on it, really the blame really was on me for being passive. I think those first rounds and not had my head right. And wrestling is one of those things that if you don't have your head in the match, you're just not going to win. You got to be there 100%, and you might get lucky a few times, but if you're not there 100%, you're just not going to pull it off. But anyway, that was kind of, I walked back in the tunnel, and I felt bad. I remember the Ricks College coach came down and told me I got robbed, and talked. A couple of friends came and, "Hey, what's up, man?" And I just remember feeling kind of lonely and just stuck in the hole there. And it was just one of those deals. But yeah. Anyway, so I sat with that. I think, and I think that was kind of. I think I was just kind of done with wrestling. It was after that. I didn't really have much of a desire. And back then, really, with wrestling, it's not something that you can go make a living out of if you do it. You go through college, and I was struggling to get through high school wrestling. There's no way I could get through college wrestling. But anyway, that was kind of about it. Besides that, a few other matches. I did a few fun things after that, but that was after in college. I did a few things, just intramural type stuff, but and summer game stuff. But that was about where it went for me. So.
That's a great story.
Anyway.
I appreciate you sharing that. That's one of those things you kind of take in life and say, hey, never again. And for any to-be wrestlers out there, hey, just focus, stay in the game, and but there's just, would you say, Dave, did that moment change your life, whether for hopefully better or hopefully not worse?
Looking back, I'm glad it happened. It was absolutely awesome for me. It was a good thing for me. I think I would have went a completely different way. I
Right.
think some of my decisions, I'm really, it was good for me because something that I walked away from it learning. I thought, just kind of my thought about life. I don't want to live my life and end up in second place because the pain of that second place is horrible, right? I don't want to die and all of a sudden look back and say, man, second place, this is rough. I don't. It's just one of those things that has kind of stuck with me, and I think it's kind of one of those. Yeah, I learned from it. I think it humbled me a lot too. I think it was just kind of one of those things that, yeah, I absolutely glad it happened. But yeah, still there's some regret, but at the same time, I know it was for a purpose, and it was sometimes we need things to kind of knock us off our horse every now and then. So it was a good thing.
Wow. Well, here's a side note for you. I was playing a game of Uno the other night. Do you have a favorite game?
Ooh, I really like Phase 10. I
Because
would
I'm going to
say,
tell you
yeah.
right now, after today, that might change. Because America's favorite new game is called Do You Know? And Dave Riddle, you're going to play it right now.
Oh, give it to me. I hate to lose
Buckle
though.
up,
So
get ready. So for any new listeners, what we do on the game Do You Know? We talk to our guests about either people or teams or whatever it is that they love, and we put them to the test. Now, I'm going to rely on your honor that you're not sitting next to a phone, a computer, anything where you can look up information. But one thing we're going to talk about before we close our show today, I believe his name is pronounced, is it Chell Sonnen?
oh yeah. Well, Uncle Chell. Yes, of
Uncle
course.
Chell. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to go through 4 questions. Let's see how many you can get right. Now, please understand, I am not a Chael Sonnen is a UFC fighter, correct? Was a
That's
UFC
correct.
fighter.
He was a
So
USC
we're going to
fighter.
jump into that. Yeah.
Oh,
So
great.
I'll try to throw, I think this is a softball question, but I try to throw a softball out. Do you know, we'll accept one of 2 answers. What was one of his nicknames?
So one of his, the big one that he goes by, he's the bad guy, the American gangster. I think the big one, yeah, American gangster. I think bad guy, one of the others. Those are 2 main nicknames.
That's what I have. Ding ding. The American Gangster on Wikipedia. That's where I was looking. It also
Ooh,
said the People's Champ. The People's Champ is an accepted nickname as well. So,
oh, I'll be darned.
um, excuse me. You and Chell Sonnen actually you had the exact same high school sporting accomplishment. Can you tell me what it was?
Yeah, he also got second at state in wrestling in high school.
How did you know that?
In fact, he and I wrestled the same year. It's Uncle Chell. Come on, man. Yeah,
Oh,
he wrestled at Oregon. Yeah,
okay.
he was second at state too.
Okay.
Brock
Boy, he's
Lesnar got
trying.
second at state. A lot of guys got.
Oh, my word.
There's a
See?
curse.
Well, that actually leads into my 3rd question, and I'm telling you, if you get 2 more right here, I think you're going to be the all-time champ. You said it. He actually wrestled at the University of Oregon, but he actually wrestled somewhere before Oregon,
Everybody
if
knows
my
that, right?
information is correct.
He wrestled at BYU, right? His first year out of school, he went over to wrestle at
Yes.
BYU. The program was kind of starting. The wrestling program was starting to get rid of it, and so he decided to head back over to Oregon State and did pretty well there too. But I don't think he did very well.
Dude,
He did okay at BYU, but
Are you
But
looking at
yeah,
Wikipedia right now? Is that what you're doing?
I promise. I promise on the Bible, I'm not googling anything.
Okay,
No
this
googling.
is my last question. In a matter of 22 days, Chael lost a given amount of weight in preparation for a fight against Dan Miller. Do you know how many pounds he lost in 22 days for a fight?
It's got to be 25, 20, 20, 25, somewhere around there. That's not really common for those guys.
He actually lost
But
36 pounds.
ooh,
36 pounds.
that's a pretty big weight loss there.
Oh,
Sorry, I
man.
let you down on that last one.
Well, I was going to say, if you knew that, then we'd have to send you to, UFC championship or some kind of championship tournament. So I'm kind of glad you didn't get it. So that's good. Well, and tell me a little bit about that. I see it. That's almost a natural transition of, wrestlers going into that type of arena. What if you were to, start over again? Would you rather do something like that, UFC, or would you rather do high school wrestling?
That's something I think looking back on it. When I was in high school, it wasn't that UFC was just barely. I guess when we were in high school, UFC was just
Yeah.
barely coming out. They had some of those. You saw guys like Dan Severn, who was a wrestler, dominating that. But yeah, I think looking back on it, I don't know. I think it can be kind of a dirty and a dark business sometimes, and I think as any of those kind of sports. So I don't regret not doing it. I thought about it. In fact, after when I was going to throw my hand at it once, when I lived in Wyoming, I had a guy there that I was. In fact, I had he was a national champion wrestler, and he and I worked out in the mornings. And I thought they used to do local cage matches there, and I thought that might be fun to give it a shot. And I thought about doing it, and then my wife, she wasn't too up on it. Then I found out they didn't test for hepatitis, and I thought, yeah, but I'm not going to do it. But but no, I think that would be. I think it's a. I think that's a. I mean, if you want to make money, you look at the UFC. I think the majority of the guys that are the championship champions at each weight. Right now the heavyweight champ is Stipe Miocic. He was a D1 wrestler at Cleveland State. John Jones. He's the light heavyweight champ and arguably probably the GOAT when it comes to UFC. But he was state champ. I think he went to Iowa Community College or somewhere. Anyway, he was a national champion community college. The welterweight champ Kamaru Usman. He was a three-time All-American, national champion at the University of Nebraska at Kearney, I guess it was. And then Khabib, I don't know if you know Khabib, but he was a wrestler too, and he's I think a two-time Sambo world champion. So anyway, the guys at the top, I think if you wanted to go that route in life, I think wrestling is probably a good platform for it. But
would you rather do UFC or WWE?
Ooh, WWE is a beautiful business. I think I think WWE would be probably UFC just because I think WWE never get to go home, so I think those guys just stay on the road all the time. But as far as the fun part of it, I don't know. WWE, UFC, that's a toss up. One or the other would be great.
Word on the street is you've already got a name picked out if you ever become a professional wrestler.
Well, that's a good. I'm glad. I don't know who you're talking to, but that's a pretty good word.
That's a word on the
Now you
street,
got to bear
man.
with me on this. As a man from Idaho, I think that you would appreciate this name. I think I would like to be known as Potato. Just Potato.
What?
That's kind of a potato. Now before you mock Potato,
What?
the potato is a kind of a sacred vegetable. I mean, you know that you're from Idaho, right?
Well,
But,
right.
but for me, potato always been something that's special to me. It's not Christmas time. I usually only tell a story around Christmas time.
Oh
My
my
kid,
God.
But got kind of special potato Christmas story. But when I was a kid, our family didn't have very much money. We had some pretty tough times when I was younger, and all I wanted as a kid for Christmas was one of those Mr. Potato Head dolls, right? It's all I wanted was a Mr. Potato Head, but our family couldn't afford it, and it was kind of one of those things. I didn't really think I was ever going to get one. Well, for Christmas that year, my mom had taken a very large potato that we'd had, and she made out of like that pipe cleaners and stuff. She made like little glasses and little eyes, and kind of made me a Mr. Potato Head, um, you know, for Christmas that year. And man, I woke up and I had that Mr. Potato Head, and I loved it, and it was just the greatest Christmas ever. And anyway, I took that potato and anyway played with it all day. But that night at dinner, we didn't have anything really much to eat, and so my mom let me know that the potato had to be dinner too. And so we took
What?
the potato and so we so I hate to bring this is kind of a tough story, but anyway,
Yeah.
so anyway, we pulled the tinsel off and we cooked the potato and I ate my gift, and after that, potatoes always been something pretty sacred. Now I tell my kids that story every year for Christmas. Now it's absolutely not true at all, but I think that kind of would bring
You
but
almost had me. Like I was ready to
but
come up and tell my kids that story on Christmas Eve.
no, and my
Oh
kids,
man.
I told my kids that story the first time, and they were all about ready to cry, and then they were so mad at me when I told them it wasn't true. But, but, but that's pro wrestling, man. You can be whatever you want to be. You can, but I think people would respect the potato if they knew the background to it. But
Wow. Well, well, as we kind of wrap up the show here, I have a question or two. You spoke about your kids. Do any of your kids wrestle? And if they do, what's that experience like as opposed to wrestling yourself versus watching your kids wrestle?
oh my goodness, I have one boy, and
Yeah.
I've got two daughters. They don't wrestle, but my boy. So I knew he was kind of the great hope for me to get my state championship, right?
Yeah.
So I planned this. I've planned this brainwashing before he was ever even born. And so I mean, I figured out how am I going to get this kid into wrestling. Um, and I started him young. I mean, he was watching UFC fights with me when he was 3, and that first year to sign him up for wrestling, I remember saying, "Hey, I'm going to sign you up for wrestling." And he says, "Well, Dad, I don't have any fighting gloves." And I said, "Well, you don't punch little boys in wrestling. You just wrestle." He goes, "Well, I guess I don't want to wrestle then."
Hmm.
And I was pretty proud of him for that thought, I mean, but anyway, we got him into wrestling. I mean, I remember, I think third grade, we started him about kindergarten.
Right.
Taught, and anyway, and we do other sports too. One year he came home though and said he wanted to try soccer. I washed his mouth out with soap and told him we don't talk that way at our house. And after that we haven't had any issues. But yeah, he he wrestles. And no, he identifies with it. He loves it. I can't get him to play basketball. I mean, it's and he knows that he doesn't have any choice. But it's an awesome experience. For me, honestly, I being a parent wrestler is way more nerve wracking than it was ever going on the mat myself. I think it's 10 times harder to be a parent wrestling, and I'm not an intense parent. I think with wrestling you can't be hard on your kids because man, kids are going to be hard enough on themselves with that sport. It's so much pressure. They don't need dad or mom scream down their throat making it harder for them. So I was blessed. After if I get lost a match, my dad would just joke and ask me, "Is like, man, you got any bruises on your shoulders?" Or laugh and and it always kind of teased, but it was never high pressure from mom and dad, and I kind of have the same theory with my boy. I want to be fun. After matches, all I care about is if he tries his best, and the winning's not that important for me right now. But anyway, it's a good thing though, and I think it teaches a lot of good things to kids. It's one of those sports that there's no, politics doesn't have. I think you had your podcast with your brother on cross country, right? It was sometimes with other sports
Right.
politics can kind of weigh in, and I think your brother missed his last 3 football games for some reason, right? And with wrestling, it's kind of one of those
Right.
things that if you're good, you wrestle, and if you try your hardest, you get a chance at it, and you don't have any. You can't point the blame at anybody else besides yourself if you're not succeeding. And I think and I think that's a good thing. I love that part of it. I love that. And size wise, you're matched up with kids your own weight. It's just a. I think it's a great thing for anybody. I think it teaches you a lot. It teaches you how far you can push yourself. And for me, there's just a lot of times in life that I look back and thought, well, this isn't as hard as wrestling practice, and I think it's just one of those things that you learn a lot of life lessons from it. So I hope my kid will continue to do it. It's something and I think he's learning and having fun with it. I think as long as he's having fun and learns to love it, they can. I don't really care on the wins or losses, but just it's a good thing for anybody.
I agree. I think you're totally right. And as we end the show, I believe there is something. Didn't your mom used to give you some advice before? Was it your mom before every match?
Yeah, so we did get there was some pressure before matches, but my mom would always say that. So maybe mom put a little bit more pressure on us than dad did, but
There you go.
her advice was she'd always say before a match, make them ball, and and,
Make them
and I don't
ball.
know, make them ball. So it was always a nice make them ball, Dave, make them ball. Got to make them ball. And I think it's always that advice. I think we were watching some wrestling tournament and some intense mom in the crowd yells out to her son, Jordan, make him ball. And after that, it was always kind of a joke. So, and so that was it. You go out and try to make somebody ball. And I mean, you make somebody cry during a wrestling match, and you got the match because it's really hard to win a match when you're balling.
Oh, man. Well, I told everybody it's going to be a great show. I think we've all heard some great stories, some funny, some great, some tough that I think everyone can relate to some tough things. But Dave, you've been a great guest. Thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for the invite. I can't wait for the rest of the world to keep learning about the Cromwell Sports Chronicles. I think this is awesome. I think you have a fantastic show.
Well, I appreciate it. Oh, cool. Again, I appreciate it. Anybody out there, you can find us on Facebook. Please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel at Cromwell Sports Chronicles. But like I've said every week, remember this. Love your family, love your community, love your country, and like the song says, you can catch your dreams. And even today, I'd pass on, be like, Chael Sonnen and Dave Riddle, be the people's champs. So appreciate it. Thanks to everybody for listening. You take care.